Today I would like to introduce you to my nature therapy cards. Nature therapy cards. In Swedish, naturterapi-kort. You can buy them in the online stores. This is a deck of cards with exercises and challenges for self-therapy in nature. So simply put, you take them out into nature, you draw a few cards and you go and do the exercises. And of course, depending on your intention, that can become a playful moment, a moment with friends or strangers. It can be a healing moment or stress management, self-exploration or fun and games. Before I actually show you the cards, I would like to give you the backstory to them. So in December of 2018, one morning I just could not get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. My girlfriend was there pulling at me saying, "Daniel, the children need to get to school. The children need to get to school. You need to get out of bed now." But I just couldn't. I couldn't. I was awake in one sense of a word. My eyes were open, but I could not move my body. And it didn't matter how much my girlfriend pulled at me. I couldn't get out of bed. That day passed by and I got out of bed in the afternoon. It took me hours just to muster the energy to get out of bed. And I knew from that moment that something was terribly wrong. But funny enough, I was also grateful from that first moment because I knew that this would be a path to immense healing, immense breakthrough, and many new tools. The first 6 months of my exhaustion, I could hardly read, I couldn't write, I could hardly speak. I would get lost mid-sentence after just 4 or 5 words. I'd get lost and I would just go quiet. I could hardly function at all. And they gave me depression tests and I remember scoring a 35 out of 36 points on that depression test. The only thing that I didn't get a point for was I wasn't actively planning suicide. But everything else was as bad as it can get. So one day I'm sitting there with a therapist and we're just trying to get a handle on where I am right now and if there's something that I can do. And she pulls out a mindfulness technique and she says, "Here's a technique that you could try." I don't remember what it was, but I do remember remembering. Because all of a sudden I was just, wait a minute. I know this technique. I've seen this technique before. And all of a sudden I remembered because it was my technique. Not mine as me inventing it, but mine as I had used this technique a lot and I had given it to my clients. So I knew this technique. But in my exhaustion, I had forgotten all my techniques. I had forgotten that I had any techniques at all. But in that realization, wait a minute, I actually have techniques to help myself through this. So that day I went home and I started looking for all the techniques that could help me. Because a few years before that, I had started writing all my techniques down, collecting them into a book. So I had a lot of these techniques just saved in that book, but I had forgotten about the book. But now that I opened it up, there were tons of techniques that could help me in my exhaustion. So I started pulling out all the best techniques and started using them, started collecting them. And as I did so, my brain started working again. It started becoming curious. It started collecting things and seeing patterns. And it was very slow at first. It was. But eventually that grew. 10 techniques, 15, 20, 30, 50. And about a year later, I was taken into a program by the Swedish Arbetsförmedlingen, helping to rehabilitate people from, for example, exhaustion. And I had the most wonderful coach there. And it wasn't that he actually coached me, he gave me the time and space to work on myself. And that was exactly what I needed. And he gave me the encouragement to continue collecting these techniques. And I think he might have been the first person that I said, I've been thinking about making a deck of cards with these techniques that I could have along out when I go out in the woods. And he encouraged me. And that's exactly what I needed in that point in time. So the first thing that I wanted was, I wanted a deck of cards in my pocket. And I told myself, if I just make one deck of cards, I will be happy with that result. So I started creating one deck of cards, printing it out on my printer at home, stamping it all out, sewing my own little bag and so on. And when I had that in my pocket, I started using it, started working with it, and slowly, I started waking up from my exhaustion. Of course, getting a lot of other help also. I mean, the deck of cards wasn't the only tool that I was using. I was getting a lot of help, a lot of good help. But after a while, I thought, this deck of cards is pretty good. What if I make a beta version? So I started doing that. I thought I'll print, 20, 30 decks. So I went to the local printers and he helped me print them all up, and I stood there stamping all the corners and so on, making them round. And then I sat quite a few evenings just sewing these little bags for hand. And eventually, yes, I did have 20, 30 decks of cards. Some I gave to my friends, others I actually sold. And I told myself, if this is all it's going to be, I am happy. And I was. I was really happy. But as this journey progressed, more and more people got in contact with these cards and they liked them. And all of a sudden, the opportunity arose to actually print these cards for real. So I started working towards that goal, to make an actual real version of them, but still keeping the soul of it all. And I reworked the structure, I reworked a lot of the cards. And as they actually came from the printer, me and my then girlfriend, we sat down and we stamped all of these little bags. I bought these little bags, but then we bought stamps, and God, we sat there for a couple of weekends just stamping all of these bags by hand. And I'm so grateful for her help, just as I am grateful for the coach that I mentioned. I'm so grateful for my then girlfriend's help. She helped me dream these cards into being. Without her, I don't think that they would exist. They might have, but at least they wouldn't have been as good as they became with her help. So thank you. Thank you. And on the way, there were a few minor challenges. And I'll mention them just, not because they're important, just because I had fun just thinking about these things. One was the illustration on the back. Now, this illustration is made by Phil Game. Again, so grateful for his work doing this illustration. And going into it, I actually told him I want this person to be androgynous. I don't want it to have an obvious gender, because I want this deck of cards to be for everyone. For me, that's actually quite important. But as he worked on it, he came back to me and he said, I just can't do that. I can't make it androgynous because it's so detailed, it needs to have a gender. And I didn't want to give it a gender. Because if you look, it's a man. But I didn't just say, well, let's make it a man then. No, it's actually not just any man. It's me. It's me, without the beard, so perhaps you can't recognize me, but it's me. So wherever you go with your deck of cards, you have me along for a ride. There were also two cards where I had to think an extra time. One contained nudity, skinny dipping, and another contained sex, having sex in nature by yourself or together with someone that you like. And the easy option, of course, would have been just to take them out, replace them with something else. But doing so, I wouldn't be authentic to myself, to my belief. Because looking at therapy nowadays, I feel that we often go from the head down to, well, approximately the belly, and then we just jump down to the legs and we continue downwards. And we try not to think about sex too much, not talk about sex too much. But still, I wanted it to be something that you could take out in school also. And I realized that, no, it might not be appropriate to bring out a deck of cards, have sex in nature and giving that to school children. And we people, we often think that it's either this or that. And we often get lost in that kind of thinking, this dualistic kind of thinking. Well, either we take them out or we leave them in. And one day it just dawned on me, well, why not do both? Why not do replacement cards, but also leave them in? So if you want to take them out, you've still got a full deck of cards with the replacement cards. And again, I sincerely want to thank everyone that helped me on this journey of developing these cards. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Ida. Thank you, Phil. And thank you, Inga-Lill. Thank you. So now, let me show you the structure of these cards and how they work, and some ways on how to work with them. One thing that I realized when working on my exhaustion was that you can't activate yourself out of exhaustion. And you can't rest yourself out of exhaustion. You need both. You need both activation and rest. Also, you can't solve exhaustion by just focusing on the outside factors, and you can't solve it by just focusing on the inside factors. You need both. So you need the inner factors and the outer factors and how they affect each other. And you also need rest and activation. Now keep this in mind. So what I did, I made 4 suits. 4 suits, just like a tarot deck. And it actually has some similarities with the lower arcana of a tarot deck. So the first suit is meditation. So meditation is inner rest. Inner rest. But we will eventually come to a point where we turn our attention outwards. Outwards. So we come to observation, outer rest. Well, leaning into activation, inner activation, is play. Because play, connected to our creativity, is activation on the inside. And then, of course, we want activation on the outside, and that is exploration. Now I would like to just show you a breakdown of how the suits are structured. So let me show you with the meditation suit. This is, of course, inner rest. And it begins with the ace, just like the lower arcana of a tarot deck. 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I'm not suggesting to do this, but if you were to go from ace and go through all of the exercises in this way, you would find that it is actually describing a progression where you are deepening your understanding of that specific suit. In this case, inner rest. Here begins with me realizing that I am actually home in nature, and to breathe in nature and then to be held by nature. And when I have come that far to be so comfortable in nature that I can breathe it in and be held by it, then I can take a nap. And waking up from that nap, I go for a cleansing walk, I do a water meditation. And then I start asking myself, what is actually important in life? And then to speak from the heart about what is important for me. Leaning over from that point into gratitude. Because we all have things to be grateful for. And coming from that space, leaning into a new beginning. The final card of that suit. And these are what I call exercises. An exercise, you can do it in the time span of, 5, 10, 15 minutes. That should be enough. So, exercises. But we have something else, don't we? We have another 4 cards. And I have chosen to call these the child, the explorer, the guardian, and the elder. These are what I call challenges. You won't do these in 5 or 10 minutes. These need planning. These need perhaps structure. And they also try to follow the progression of human life. So the child filled with curiosity. Here the challenge is to spend a night in the forest. As you start growing up, as you start exploring life, perhaps in your 30s or 40s, you start understanding that you're carrying a lot of luggage from your childhood. And it is time to start letting go of a lot of that luggage. So letting go. And moving on to the guardian. Now the guardian, I suppose that could be your 40s, 50s, 60s. You are maturing. For real. You're maturing into not just trying to create what you could imagine in your 20s, but to let that dream expand. With the life experience that you have now, you are ready for a greater vision. So it makes sense to have a vision quest somewhere along there. Now moving on yet once more to the elder. Now I believe that everyone should do their forgiveness work. And the sooner, the better. because you don't want to wait until you're an old man or woman before you do this work. You want to do this continually during your life. But if you haven't, you should really do it before you leave this existence. Having come this far in life, having matured so much, I hope that you are ready to own up to your mistakes and also to forgive others their mistakes. Not primarily to release them, but to release yourself. Because you are the one that is stuck as long as you have not asked or given forgiveness. Now hopefully this spills over into helping everyone else also. So 4 suits, all different in their energy. Activation, rest, inner, outer. Exercises and challenges. Now let's look at how you could work with these by yourself or together with others. Let's move on to how to use these cards. Now, I was a bit surprised to find out that most of these decks had been sold to therapists. I imagined that people like me, people needing the help, would be the ones buying the cards, but 80% of it has gone to therapists. They use it with their clients. Which makes me immensely happy, because I've heard so many stories about therapists using these cards with their clients and how they use them. So of course there are lots of ways of doing this. One common way that I've heard is that before they end their coaching session or their therapy session, whatever it is, they'll have a client draw a card, and they will then take that exercise along home and report back next time. And you can do something similar for yourself. You could draw a card each morning or once a week and practice that exercise that week or that day. Others will bring the deck of cards along when they're going out into nature, into the woods or whatever. And there they will use them more like inspiration. Because a lot of people, when they go out into nature, and okay, well now I'm in nature. Now what? I've heard so much good about the healing benefits of being in nature, but now I'm just standing here. A lot of people in the modern setting, they need a little inspiration. Well, now I'm in the forest. Now what? So they'll draw a card or two to get inspiration, to go out and play, to interact with nature around them. Now personally, I have mainly used this in groups, in group settings. So in a group setting, the first thing that I do, before anyone else gets there, I will have a look around, well, what cards suit this environment? For example, if there's no water, I'll take out all the water cards. And I will do the same thing before any session. Before any session, I'll just sort through the cards and take the ones out that aren't applicable. Sometimes I'll put those in a separate pile and I'll offer the group to take one for inspiration going home. But my usual procedure is kind of sorting through the cards, taking the ones out that I want to work with, and then spread them out on a drum with the text facing down so that you can't see what cards you're drawing. And after having had a presentation and getting to know each other, then I'll have everyone take 2, 3, 4 cards. And the fun thing about that is that everyone will have their own cards, their own unique experience. So after having gotten their cards, they'll run away in different directions doing their thing. And all of a sudden you'll hear someone screaming over there. Okay, well, they got the screaming card, didn't they? And someone will be playing along over there being an elephant or a wolf or something. while someone is meditating or lying flat on the ground. And when we all meet up again, I send the talking stick around and we all share our experience. What was my experience like? What did I find in this experience? And the fun thing about this is that often it isn't even in my own experience that I find what I was looking for. Sometimes it is actually in the other people sharing their experience. Oh, now that person said exactly what I needed to hear in this moment. Wasn't I lucky to be here to hear that? But many times, of course, we did get exactly the right card to give us exactly the right experience that we needed in this moment. And remember, when you're doing a sharing circle like that, everyone shares as much or as little as they want. If you don't want to share, you don't have to share. That is really important. Now, I find that to be the most fun way of doing it, because everyone will have their own unique experience, and meeting up again, talking about those unique experiences makes it a lot more fun. But you could do it another way in a group. You could, as a group, draw a few cards. And then, as a group, you could go out and do those cards together. Okay, so this first card says that we should find something that we have never seen before. And that's one of my favourite cards, because we often don't think about it, but there's so much around us that we haven't noticed. Now, finding it, we might know what it is. It might not come as a big surprise, but we might never have seen it. And now all of a sudden we are a group doing the same thing. We're all walking around looking for things that we've never seen before. And someone might say, I've never seen one of these. While someone else says, oh, I've seen lots of those. We used to have those on the farm when I was growing up. And there you find an interaction in a shared experience, but where we're all coming in from different perspectives. So doing the same exercises together can be great fun also. Working in a group setting like that, it is best to stick to the exercises, not to the challenges. Again, I would put them aside and I would offer the group when they're leaving, if you would like, here are some challenges. If you would like a challenge to bring along home. Now, I've given you a few different ways of approaching the cards, but find your way. My way isn't the right way, it's just the way I've done it. You might find something even better, and if you do, when you do, please tell me. I'd love to hear how you do it, how you approach them. So, nature therapy cards. Exercises and challenges for self-therapy, self-exploration in nature. Now, the English ones, I don't have anyone distributing them. I'd love to hook up with someone that kind of does an Amazon shop or something for worldwide distribution, but I don't have that. So you'll have to get in contact with me privately. And they are available in Swedish, Naturterapi-kort. You can get them from me, or you can buy them from the online bookstores. And lastly, why am I telling you about all of this now? Well, for the coming months, I will be drawing cards every few days a week. And I'll be posting shorts. So if you want inspiration in your contact with Mother Earth, with nature around you, if you want stress relief, if you want to dive into yourself, into the connection with your surroundings, subscribe and you will be getting shorts with all of these exercises. And I hope to be done by the autumn equinox. So we've got a few months ahead of us where I'll be giving you all the exercises from this deck of cards. And if you want your own deck, don't hesitate. Just get in contact with me and we'll fix it. And as always, if you want to go deeper into your journey, connecting with Mother Earth, connecting with nature, connecting with everything around you, relieving stress, relieving exhaustion, relieving depression, and you are looking for someone that has done that journey, been there, and come out the other side, you want someone to support you to do the same, reach out. I'd love to work with you. I wish you a wonderful journey.